This is a neonatal intensive care unit at Baptist Medical Center, a place John Patrick has called home since he was less than a day old. JP, as he's affectionately known to the nurses who watch over him, was born about 3 months premature and developed lung scars, a condition that requires lots of special care. This afternoon, the folks at Baptist broke out the cake and ice cream to celebrate JP's birthday. There were also lots of presents and even a visit from a clown.
Most of these babies recover by the time they're 6 or 7 years old. Large majority of them don't even require oxygen after age 2. And I think the overall prognosis is fine for him.
So far, John Patrick's medical bill is about $335,000. The hospital has received only $9,000 from Medicaid. The rest of the bill will be written off to charity.
And what it's reflecting is that because there is no system in Alabama to help take care of indigent maternal or infants, then the hospitals are trying to survive by shifting it on the other people who can pay.
Sometime soon, John Patrick will get out of the hospital. He'll be in the custody of the state because pensions and security officials say his family just isn't able to take care of him. But JP isn't headed for a loving foster home, at least not for a while. Until his special medical needs are met, he'll live in a nursing home. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
When Benjamin Payton was born 51 years ago in a shack on the outskirts of Orangeburg, South Carolina, no one who attended his birth could have possibly foreseen what the future had in store for him. To be born poor, to be born black in the rural South of the early 1930s was not the most desired of beginnings. But to his credit, to the credit of his parents who encouraged him, President Benjamin Payton of Tuskegee Institute is today one of the foremost black educators in America. You can delete that racial reference. He is one of the foremost educators in America. Ben Payton was one of 9 children born to a family headed by a circuit-riding Baptist preacher. To help feed and clothe his large family, the elder Payton also farmed, and because he had attended college for 2 years, he also taught school. From childhood, Ben and his brothers and sisters were taught that if they were to achieve any success in their lives, if they were to ever play a role in ending the injustices done to their people, it was imperative that they get a good education. This parental advice did not go unheeded. All 9 children are college graduates. 5 of them earned master's degrees, and 2 earned doctoral degrees. Early in his college days, Dr. Payton seemed destined to follow in his father's footsteps as a man of the cloth. But he came under the influence of several noted black educators, most especially Dr. Benjamin Mays, president of Morehouse College. And from this influence, his academic pursuits became more intellectual in orientation. Dr. Payton graduated with honors from South Carolina State University, earned a Bachelor of Divinity degree from Harvard, a master's degree in philosophy from Columbia, and his doctoral degree from Yale University. At this point in his career, Dr. Payton was not sure in what direction he might go. He had earlier decided that he did not want to be a pastor, nor was being a college president one of his goals. Instead, he expected that someday he might become the dean of the School of Religion at some university. Some of his early assignments pointed him in that direction. He was director of the Office of Church and Race of the Protestant Council of New York City. Later, he was an executive with the National Council of Churches. He was serving in an executive level position with the Ford Foundation when he was invited to be interviewed for the presidency of Tuskegee. He had not applied for the job. He candidly admits that both he and his wife had some reservations about moving to Tuskegee, but their first visit to the city and the historic campus persuaded them that this was where they wanted to be. Dr. Payton, who assumed the Tuskegee presidency in 1981, admits to some frustration about the image of that institution within the state of Alabama. Somewhat like the scripture about the prophet without honor, Tuskegee Institute is known and respected around the world for its enormous contributions to black education and research. Yet in Alabama, it is viewed as little more than another black college. And this lack of appreciation is reflected in the support it has received from the state. Dr. Payton is determined to improve this image and to increase this support. You would be well advised to bet that he succeeds in both efforts. He's had a lot of experience at clearing hurdles. Dr. Benjamin Payton, a very interesting person.
Senator, the Senate took action today to increase competition within the Defense Department. How would that work?
Well, I'm a strong believer in national defense, and I believe we must have a strong national defense, but I think we could have a lot better management. I think we could save money by a lot more competition in purchasing and in contracting. The Senate adopted an amendment to the Defense Authorization Bill today which would create the Office of Competition Advocate General in every agency of the Department of Defense. This high-ranking officer would be charged with the responsibility of seeing that competition prevails in all contracts that the Department of Defense or any agency thereof enters into.
And this would hopefully lower the price of defense contracts.
Oh, yes, and it would. He would have a lot of responsibilities. He would be charged with reviewing everyone to see that competition prevails, and if his recommendations were not followed, there is a requirement that the agency of the Department of Defense would have to report to Congress the reasons why it was not followed. So this affirmatively puts the issue of competition clearly on the backs of the bureaucrats in the Pentagon.
Turning to the Port of Mobile as a candidate for some naval ships. You attended a meeting last night. What did you learn at that meeting?
Well, this is something we've been working on. The Department of Navy has not yet announced whether it will have a Gulf Coast naval port or not, but we're very optimistic about it. We think that decision will be made in the near future, and we think that Mobile has an excellent chance of being the naval base on the Gulf Coast, and if so, it will mean a great deal to the Gulf Coast and to the Mobile area.
What is the scenario for that decision?
Well, they will determine whether or not they may have a naval base on the Gulf Coast. The second step will be what types of ships will be home-based at the naval base, and the third will be the location of the naval base.
Is there a timetable?
Well, I don't think there's any timetable. I think we'll see a lot of activity this year, and possibly the decision made either before the end of this year or maybe around the first of the next year.
As I indicated earlier, it is a real honor for us to be able to have Congressman Dickinson with us. Due to the fact that he has supported us, the fact that we are a meaningful headquarters in his district.
Congratulate you on a great job that you're doing. We look to our active forces, and they're the ones that we normally think of in terms of reaction to an alert or to an emergency situation. But those of us who are connected with the military and deal with it realize that it is the citizen soldier that is really the backup and the heart and soul of our total defense preparedness, and it's the best buy for the buck that we can get.
Say hello to the congressman, especially if you're from his district, and most all of us are. He will be eating lunch with us at a table with some of our...
It's okay. It's getting pretty rough though. But you're gonna make it. What? 50? How many hours have we been here so far? About 50, 51. It's getting bad.
It's getting pretty tough so far. These positions they're putting us in, they're just tough.
Rough, buddy. Rough. I'm gonna make it though.
No competition. There's 9 of them and 1 of me. No problem.
You're gonna win.
That's right. Told them last night, I'm gonna win it.
A 14-karat gold rope The winter of '84 proved too much for the Court Square Fountain. Heavy ice crumbled a lower tier of the 99-year-old landmark. City officials took it down and sent it to Robinson Foundry in Alex City, where most of the 17,000-pound fountain's 800 parts were recast. The fountain arrived in sections in Montgomery at about 6:30 this morning to much warmer conditions than it left in January. Workers toiled all day in 90-degree temperatures, putting up the fountain's cranes, painting on the antique finish, and welding the parts together. Some of the foundry workers who had recast the ornamental figures came to see the final product, including Olin Mason, a master pattern maker who says a lot went into reconstruction of the fountain.
A lot of work, a lot of sweat, and a lot of imagination.
It also took a lot of money. Reconstruction and installation of the fountain will cost the city $154,000, but Mayor Emery Falmer believes it's worth it.
Just delighted it's back in. Can't wait to get Hebe lined up and turn the water on.
The Court Square Fountain is back home and should be pumping 400 gallons of water a minute by Wednesday. Lisa Walsh, WSFA TV News.
Tom, in 1982, 58% of all boating fatalities happened because of falls overboard or capsizings or swampings. If those people were wearing their life preservers, they would have kept them up in those type of situations. 80% of all fatalities happen because of drownings. However, they go in the water because of an accident or a fall overboard. If they're wearing a life preserver, it's to give them a better chance to survive once they get in the water.
Do it like that, and wait.
Center field, center field. All right. There you go. Come on. Come on, you're all right. Attaboy, George. Attaboy. There you go, good job. Stay right there, George. Right there. Good hole. There you go, dude. He got you, you real guy. He might recognize you. Wave at me, boy. Come here.
It's just a terrific day. I'm very honored to be in a very select circle of tennis players, and Chris is one of them. Thank you very much.
They take it all very seriously, these 275 high school girls who have come to take part in a tradition of learning, a tradition called Girl State.
It's a rare opportunity you have, and I hope that you will bring an expectation to make the most of it.
It was started 41 years ago by the American Legion Auxiliary. Simply put, it is a week for these girls to debate the issues facing the state, to campaign for votes, to elect their own officers, to get first-hand experience in pretend politics.
The thing that's very real here is the awareness and the opening of a new horizon of education for these bright minds.
Kay Ivey is the director for Girl State.
They are very sincere about presenting the issues pro and con and finding resolution.
Darcy Little is the governor of this year's Girl State. She was elected last year.
You never really get to see what the state officials have to go through until you participate in something like this. You get to see how difficult it is for the legislatures to work on the problems in the state.
And that's just what this year's delegates are looking for. A chance to learn a little, and hopefully a chance for their opinions to be heard by the real lawmakers.
I do feel that we should have some say in it, that we do have new ideas, and I feel like this is going to give us a chance to express our ideas.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Well, I think more people are interested in stopping the buildup in arms than we realize. I know I recently heard that there were 800 members of Common Cause here, all of whom are interested in the same thing. It's part of the platform here at the state level, the Democratic platform. We hope to have it become part of the Republican platform also. I think probably we're not a people that get up and march and have a lot of protests, so it's hard to tell who is visibly in support of it.
The first score of the game would be an RBI by the Dodgers starting pitcher Alejandro Pena. Guerrero would make it 1-0 Los Angeles. Dodgers center fielder Kenny Landreau with his second solo homer in as many days coming in the fourth inning. It was now 2-0 Los Angeles. The Braves' first run would come in the fifth inning. Jerry Royster with a hit to right will score Rafael Ramirez, but Royster with a base-running blunder, something that plagued Atlanta today, would end that inning. In their half of the fifth, LA's Greg Brock with an RBI to make it 3-1 Los Angeles. Atlanta, however, would make it close. In the ninth inning, a sacrifice fly would pull within one, but it was not enough. The Dodgers would win the first series between the National League West teams for the '84 campaign, winning 3 of 4 from Atlanta.
First set action. John McEnroe in the far court, set to serve to Yvonne Lendl. After the return, McEnroe sends the ball down one line with the drop shot, and then at net, McEnroe with the backhand winner. He took the first set by a score of 6-3. And Johnny Mac would breeze ahead in the second set as well. Here, a waiting serve from Lendl. After a few volleys, McEnroe will find the opening down the line, and that sets him up to come to net. Here comes McEnroe with a nice drop shot. He won the second set 6-2. He seemed to be in control. But in the third set, Yvonne Lendl took the upper hand. And he would say after the match that this was the turning point of the match. McEnroe serving to Lendl. After serve, McEnroe will come to net, but Lendl with the forehand right by him to take a 4-2 lead. He went on to win the set 6-4. Now we go to the fourth set. McEnroe serving to Lendl. The two players were content to exchange from baseline to baseline, but Lendl had an idea here. He'll set up McEnroe first with a shot down one line, and then watch the beautiful forehand coming up that fools McEnroe the other way. Lendl took the set 7-5, and he was holding up in the heat. but it was apparent that McEnroe's hopes were turning to frustration. Now at match point, Yvonne Lendl awaits the serve of McEnroe, and it didn't take long. McEnroe rushes the net, but his shot will hit wide. And with that, the choke label is no longer on the back of Yvonne Lendl. He wins the French Open 3-6, 2-6, 6-4, 7-5, 7-5 over John McEnroe. First quarter action, Los Angeles in gold. James Worthy takes it to Larry Bird for 2 of his 20 points. Later, Bird comes back, first with a fake, then the running one-hander. Bird had 28. This game was expected to be physical, and it was. Dennis Johnson to Cedric Maxwell, who is pushed past the post and into the crowd by James Worthy, one of a few scuffles on the court today. Later, Magic Johnson on the drive with the basket and the foul, but the Celtics would hold the upper hand in the first half. Gerald Henderson with the steal. Henderson had 22 points for Boston. The Celtics led 65-59 at halftime. They stretched that lead to 11 in the third quarter. Bird to Johnson to Parrish for 2 more. That's when the Lakers put Byron Scott into the game. He produced a comeback, setting up the steal, and then Kareem ahead to Byron Scott for 2. The Lakers down 87-83 after 3. And then in the fourth quarter, Byron Scott knocks the ball away again. Magic to Byron Scott for the beautiful reverse. The Lakers were on their way. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with 9 of his 30 points down the stretch. And finally, Magic Johnson will finish the Celtics off. He added 21 points as the Lakers win Game 6, 119-108.
Question. If this is done, will this be in the public interest? So I suggest today,
both the residential and the business, that we would not come for making that necessarily the predicates and the foundations of that filing via their empirical analysis and their overall return earned by the company. So then you realize that our recommendation is 183 available.
Question like how big is big?
Did he vote to crack down on tax shelters and close loopholes and help the average citizen of the 2nd District by bringing more equity to our tax system, as well as reducing the $200 billion national budget deficit? No, rather than voting for the average citizen of the 2nd District, who are not wealthy, he was one of only 97 congressmen who voted to keep these tax shelters and loopholes in place and protect the rich. Pointing it at his former House colleague from the 2nd District, who is a far worse offender.
The commission for more than a month had tabled the transfer of 2 liquor licenses in the county. The holdup was Sheriff Lamar Haddon, who wanted the transfers rejected. The sheriff was upset that both establishments have out-of-state owners, which he said made it impossible to enforce any liquor law violations. The owners of this Gordon Lounge took their case to court, claiming their civil rights were being violated by not receiving the license. But Sheriff Haddon says a new state law now allows his department to effectively enforce liquor laws, so he's changed his mind on the transfers.
At this time, the sheriff has informed us that he is now ready to approve these transfers. What is your desire?
The commission's desire was to unanimously approve the transfers, but the legal fight for the county may not be over. Last August, the commission turned down a liquor license request for this Wicksburg Lounge at the sheriff's recommendation. Now the owner has filed a $100,000 claim against the county, alleging his reputation has been hurt. The commission this morning took no action on the claim. Cal Calloway, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
The public is so ignorant as to lawyers. I think statistics show that 35% never hire a lawyer. and 30% maybe one time. So the public is totally ignorant as to, and that's not saying bad things about the public, but they know nothing about the legal profession. They know nothing about the court system as a general rule.
What little advertising lawyers do must be done in newspapers. Alabama's professional code keeps them off television and radio. But the state Supreme Court can change that. The Bar Association wants the court to lift the ban and let attorneys advertise as they do in most other states. The Bar Association wants to open the door to radio and television, but just a crack. The bar is afraid a lawyer might hit the airwaves and sound like he's selling detergent or something.
There have been horror stories of lawyers advertising unrestricted, such as the fellow in Chicago that wore a scuba diving uniform, came out of the pool and said, if you've got to go in over your head, let me put you in bankruptcy.
The bar is saying yes to TV and radio, but no to pictures, testimonials, background music, or more than one non-dramatic voice.
They almost mandate that any advertisement must be dull or boring, which certainly will ensure inattention and indifference by our viewers and listeners.
Broadcasters and government officials say the restrictions are self-defeating. WSFA TV's general manager, Chuck Whitehurst, says TV doesn't have to damage a professional image. And a spokesman for the Federal Trade Commission says the court should just make sure the ads aren't false or misleading. The lawyer who brought up the whole issue, R.B. Jones, says the TV and radio ads will give the public the information it needs to pick the right attorney.
Shouldn't you know my experience, and shouldn't you know about me, and know that I'm a trial lawyer, I'm a SEC lawyer when you come to hire me?
The president of the bar says information is fine, but he doesn't want anyone coming to the altar of justice to the sound of banjo music. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Jury selection took all morning, and it became increasingly difficult to find any jurors who didn't know Sheriff Hewlett on a personal basis. The longtime sheriff and civil rights leader has made many friends, and it's that contention which prompted attorneys for the Timmons family to ask that the trial be moved, saying it would be impossible to get a fair trial in Lowndes County. Timmons has been held in the Montgomery County Jail since his indictment on attempted murder charges last winter. Circuit Judge Dale Segrist painstakingly questioned each potential juror about what they had heard about the case, how they felt about it, and how well they knew both Timmons and the sheriff. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, Hayneville.
No, if you want to change your mind. Okay. That's you like it. I hope you like it.
Yeah.
You want if you punch it a second time, it will disappear and you can erase it. That will die these things in the county.
I will. What y'all know? There's the grand jury room. Is this it? Where do we go, Hollis? That's it. We can?
They are voting on some cases they're going to get.
Ohio today, Congressman Stokes. He said, no, I don't want an exclusionary rule.
Time I've got to slip out just a few.
Probably last year, maybe even the year before, we reached the 25,000 lawsuits per year mark, which means that there's a lawsuit filed against a police department, sheriff's department, or other law enforcement agency every year for about one in every 20 officers. Now, I can tell you departments like Los Angeles, where it's every 3 or 4 officers in some cases in the patrol division. There's still agencies that have never been sued. None of their officers have ever been sued.
And certainly we want you to have a safe trip home. But I want you to know that we will not be
other side. And we have been in cases where there's 27 organizations participating as friends of the court. I will tell you the 26 were on the side.
I think a professional will work hard to.
There have been horror stories of lawyers advertising unrestricted, such as the fellow in Chicago that wore a scuba diving uniform, came out of the pool and said, if you've got to go in over your head, let me put you in bankruptcy.
Will inhibit communications to the point that the objectives of the advertisements will be difficult or impossible to achieve.
In between floor debate on the state employee pay raise and highway department bond program, lawmakers passed a handful of resolutions creating interim committees. Those resolutions were but a few of the many resolutions passed during the regular and special sessions, creating 17 interim committees, committees which allow lawmakers to collect their salary and expenses when they meet. Of the 17 committees, all but one allow the legislators to collect their $95 a day salary and expenses plus mileage for each meeting they attend. The resolutions limit how much each committee can spend, but the 17 committees have a total budget in excess of $152,000. Oddly enough, the interim committee to oversee the handling of historical state documents and records doesn't have any budget, while a continuing committee to study nuclear activity and hazardous waste has a budget of $35,000. The subject of the other committees ranges from arts and humanities, child abuse, municipal and county government, insurance, high technology, state parks, international trade, and more. The committees are charged with studying their subject area and turning their report with any recommendations into the full legislature when it reconvenes in 1985. The success of interim committees in the past has ranged from the committee which stirred the education community with its findings nearly 3 years ago to other committees whose only claim to fame are its members who claim pay when they didn't attend meetings. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The only 340-hour training program in the nation. Just super great. It's better than I ever dreamed that it would. When we kicked this program off in April of '83, I had hoped maybe 2 or 3 years down the road in my plans that we would be where we are today, just a little less than or just a little more than a year later, people. And both of those programs are community-based type programs. And so they have to have, we have the only 340-hour training program in the nation for correctional officers, and we have our own academy now.
This is the first time in more than a decade that Alabama can brag about its prisons, about the number of inmates, and about the lack of intervention by the courts into the prison system's daily activities. Why? Prison Commissioner Fred Smith says it's his supervised intensive restitution program known as SIR. It allows some inmates to get out of jail and work out their debt to society by paying restitution to their victims. It's also the program that many people, especially Attorney General Charles Braddock, fought to stop. But it's a program recognized by experts as a model for other states to follow.
We've been amazed. I think today a little over 86% of the inmates are working on with gainful employment. Papers throughout the state have been very supportive because they understand, even though today it's a little less than 9% of the people have been rearrested. And I didn't pull any punches with this. I told the public that some of them are going to commit other crimes.
The rearrests occur all over the state: Gadsden, Selma, Anniston, Talladega, Dothan, and more. One man was rearrested for murder. It's this and more that has some law enforcement officials upset.
We are convicting these people, but again, as soon as we convict them, we look up and they're back on the street.
Overall, though, the record looks good. More than 1,600 inmates out on SUR since April of last year and $40,000 paid in restitution. Robert Doss is a prime example of a SUR success. He works at Dormeyer Products.
It really costs more now to commit a crime than to do the crime. It costs really a good bit. It costs more. It cost me more this time than the crime was really worth it. It wasn't worth it.
Charlie, was there any reluctance at all on your part when Robert came looking for a job to hire him, knowing that he's an inmate?
Yeah, sure, in the beginning, but we gave him a try, and it's worked out very well.
Every month, corrections officials come to the circuit clerk's office to deliver the restitution money. 25% of each inmate's salary goes toward this restitution. The inmates are required to meet with their correction supervisors weekly. That's when they make their payments, usually with money orders. Circuit Court Clerk Debbie Hackett says before this program began, her office collected about $25 a year in restitution.
Acid rain and its effects are more associated with the industrial Northeast, but now some environmentalists say it's becoming a hazard to timber and food crops in the South as well. The only state-operated acid rain monitoring station is located here at Tallahassee, Alabama. A precipitation collector sits patiently waiting for rain to sample. A sensor automatically uncovers a collector when it starts to rain and covers it back up when the shower is over. Data on temperature, solar radiation, wind speed, and direction are also recorded and placed on tape for later analysis. Richard Grusnick says it's well known how acid gets into the rain. The question is how to get it out.
But the difficulty that people are having now is if you reduced emissions by 10 million tons per year in the 31 states east of the Mississippi, what would be the reduction in acidity of the rainfall that you would get? And that's really where one of the most difficult issues is now, is if you spend these billions of dollars to reduce the 10 million tons, are you assured that that's going to reduce the acidity of the rainfall to such an extent that it's going to make an improvement?
Grusnick says Alabama's rain is about 7 to 8 times more acidic than normal, but he points out that it's still 7 or 8 times less acidic than the rain in New York City. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
The Washington Federals boast the league's second leading receiver in Joy Walters, who made his presence known early at Legion Field with his 41-yard reception to set up Washington's first touchdown. Curtis Bledsoe stunned the Stallions, scoring from the 2. The Stallions were even further surprised when Walters gave the league's worst team, record-wise, a 2-touchdown lead, taking Mike Hoense's pass from the 14 to start the second quarter. But by halftime, Birmingham had tied the game. While the Federals keyed on Joe Cribbs, Leon Perry scored the first of 4 Stallion touchdowns. Then Cliff Stout, who was 20 of 30 for 357 yards, found Robin Earl to make it 14-14. Birmingham enjoyed its first lead in the third quarter after Joey Jones hauled in this 67-yard bomb from Stout. Perry followed with a short touchdown run. But it was 21-21 before Stout found Ken Toller crossing over the middle. The ex-Ole Miss standout turned it into a 41-yard gain, and Perry tacked on another touchdown from the 1. The Stallions completed the route when Stout found Cribbs out of the backfield from the 24. Birmingham won 42-21. They can clinch their first ever Southern Division title next Saturday in Memphis. Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
A field of 39 cars were at the starting line for the Van Scoy Diamond Mines 500 stock car race at Pocono International Speedway. And as the green flag came out, it would be Neil Bonnet jumping out to the early lead. But as the race progressed, it appeared that it would be anybody's race. There were 19 lead changes involving 8 different cars on the afternoon. First, Kel Yarborough in car number 28 takes the lead, but that lead would be short-lived because Dale Earnhardt in car number 3 would charge ahead of Yarborough. Now it's Earnhardt in the lead. Midway through the 200-lap race, the leaders were bunched together. There were 5 cars battling for the front spot. Kel Yarborough in car number 28 goes for the lead. His car takes a minor skid, but Yarborough still comes out on top. Kel Yarborough would gamble in this race, taking his last pit stop 115 miles from the finish, and at a risk of running out of gas, Yarborough takes the checkered flag, averaging 139 miles per hour. Kel Yarborough wins the Van Scoy Diamond Mines 500.
the Dodgers on a two-run homer by Brock. Deep left field, way back. This ball is gone. Home run, run of the year, and he hit it. Base hit up the middle, that's going to tie it. Here comes Salazar. He will score. We're tied at 4. Mature for young baseball. The opportunity. There goes a runner, throw not in time. Go ahead, Timmy. So now he just did it again. Go to Bobby Brown. Base hit right field. Here comes McReynolds. Here's the throw to the plate. It will not be in time. Ball game's over. Padres win 5-4.
In less than 3 weeks, Alabama swim coach Don Gambrell will be working with the best swimmers the United States has to offer as coach of the U.S. Olympic swim team. But his audience on this occasion is much younger and much less experienced. Gambrell, though, is just as enthusiastic teaching 1 2-week session of the swim camp as he is teaching Tide swimmers.
It's fun to watch these people grow up. Some of them end up on the university team here, and some of them, unfortunately, on other teams. But we've had some people go through that have gone on to break world records, and many of them that have made All-American at the university. And you know, we feel it's a real good program, and one that I kind of enjoy, getting a chance to, you know, be around some of the young people once in a while.
The campers in this session come from as far away as Wyoming and Montana. In this country,
I was interested in the swim camp, and my coach started researching looking down south for a swim camp, a good swim camp, and he found this one. 6
swimmers are from Chile, including 13-year-old Juan Antonio Winter of Santiago.
I'm trying to get a better backstroke, and all the other guys are trying to get better styles, strokes, and we're trying just to get in good shape to get to Chile and swim good.
Now, who do you think an aspiring 13-year-old swimmer from Chile would idolize?
I like Brody Gaines because he's pretty fast. I would like to be as fast as him.
The people the swimmers are going to want to emulate are going to be the top swimmers in the world, and those, for the most part, have been predominantly American. Of course, Rowdy was and is, you know, very great American champion, and he's known worldwide.
Brody Gaines is going to shatter the American record.
Leading hitter in the American League sends Mike Bodeker's delivery down the right field line. Jim Dwyer can't get to this one in time. The ball goes into the corner. Lou Whitaker was on first. He's chugging around the base path. He'll score to give Detroit 3. It stayed that way until the 5th when Kirk Gibson gave the Tigers the lead for good. With this blooper to left center, it falls in for a single. Marty Castillo scores. Lou Whitaker will also score. The Tigers had a 5-3 lead. They kept building on that advantage in the 8th. Alan Trammell with a shot down the line and left. The bases were loaded at the time. Chet Lemon and Tom Brookins come in to score, and Lou Whitaker scores for the 5th time. Detroit beats Baltimore 10.
Member of the House who could do more good for this district than Bill Dickens. So Bill was on the right side again. And then now, there are some who want to gamble on the military capabilities of the United States. Bill Dickinson believes, as I do, that we better have that margin of safety for our national security, and Bill's leadership in the Congress, his voting record, is a clear indication that he wants us prepared to maintain the peace, to deter aggression, and meet any contingency.
There is nothing more important to this district than agriculture, industry, and the military. Now this is
Now, thirdly, there's another very important area.
leader, because that was the first fight that we had after I got elected to Congress. And he was elected minority leader and went on from there to, I forgot what he did after that, but I'm sure it's some important.
With the other political needs that exist in the state from just state. The formula recognizes the types of programs and the number of students and funds a similar program for the same number of students in a similar fashion on every campus, which is, I think, a fair and equitable way to fund higher education. However, there's still, after this session, there's still 5 institutions that are below 100% of their minimum needs as computed by the Alabama Commission of Higher Education with respect to funding. And there are some institutions that are still funded at 118% of their minimum needs. So we've got more money than can be justified in terms of minimum needs going into some institutions that are below the 100% minimum needs as identified by AIC. We're at least moving in.
Clanton, Alabama, which is a high-tech industry and going to provide 50 new jobs. We have with us today
Others that's helped us get this.
I just want to thank all the people that were involved and everybody that will be involved in the future, because we want to see Chilton County.
Right, we want to thank you for your confidence in not only the industrial future of Chilton County.
Okay, smile.
The root of the dispute is this bill passed by the Alabama legislature this year. It gives the coroner an additional monthly expense allowance of $400 through the end of next year. Coroner Ricky Stokes lobbied hard for this bill in Montgomery. He says County Commissioner Lowell Roundtree fought to have the bill killed. Monday, on Roundtree's motion, the County Commission voted to take away the van Stokes has been using and give it to the County Maintenance Department. Stokes says this was done as a lesson in politics. Today, the coroner went before the Dothan City Commission. Last year, that board authorized work to repair the coroner's van.
I just want to apologize to y'all. I did not mislead y'all. I didn't know it was going to be transferred after y'all spent about $1,500 on reworking it to be used. So.
Late this afternoon, Stokes turned the van over to the county. He promises to fight to get it back with a possible lawsuit as a last resort. But for now, the van is out of his hands. Mary Beth Boyd, WSFA TV News, Dothan.
Vote for Bill and get that vote out. Republican leader or president, whenever there was a tough vote that required some political courage and wisdom, I could always count on Bill Dickinson.
So now we're faced with a choice. The question is, do you want to continue as we are going, or do you want to go back to what we had? I don't think there is any choice, and I thank you for your help.
We can have a cross in that too. See it close. Somebody want to hunt over? Just turned 18.
I done got my eyes burned on this baby. Some more fire flash back on me. Well, that's it? Yeah.
For the news media at 1:30, and I have a notice that's going out. He has initially. They have determined that over the last 6-month period, the Alabama Power Company overcharged the residents of the city of Dothan in the amount of $358,160, and that will be coming to the residents of the city of Dothan in the next 4 months as a refund with interest added. Has hired Bob Clausen to be he has the experience, has walked every to say. Anything from the commissioners?
Linda Morrow is our new president. A man, concern and bravery. She's really taken on something.
We just want to be a presence. We want to be felt in the courtroom and in Montgomery. And no, we won't be there with signs or anything like that. We'll just be there keeping a watch.
I'm not a victim, and I don't know. You have to, work through it yourself. And I think it would help to be together with other victims and not in the general public meeting.
About the terrorist threat here in the southeast United States, and I will review the There are over 2,200 agents in the United States, and a portion of these are in the southeast United States. Now, they may not be here, but they'll get missions to target certain things. And we always have 2 satellites coming over taking pictures of Fort Rucker every day. I can say that much, and I can't tell you what they take pictures of or what their capabilities are. And we have systems that we know when they're coming over and so forth. We think here in the United States, especially Southeast, thank Colonel Hessler to inviting me here. I'd like to talk about this itself. Now I'll go into some of these, and these will probably interest you. It does everyone there because they don't know these things are going on. Now these are
Under these waters, between the tip of Mobile County and Dauphin Island, is Grant's Pass, a stretch of submerged land which was named after John Grant, who maintained a channel along here during the mid-1800s. Several miles to the east are submerged tracts of land which 3 years ago netted the state almost $450 million in leases from oil companies who think the area sits on huge deposits of gas and/or oil. 2 years ago, the University of South Alabama claimed it had inherited the underwater soil of Grants Pass and its possible oil deposits and asked for sole possession, which Governor James gave them in his final month in office. Once Governor Wallace took over, he began fighting the transfer, including a controversial legislative session reversing Governor James' action.
But today, Judge Joseph Phelps ruled that the university has never had a legal claim to Grants Pass, saying the state constitution expressly puts navigable waterways in a trust for the people. Judge Phelps ruled Governor James could not have deeded that land away. In a prepared statement issued today, the university says it will appeal the decision, saying again it feels it has a right to inherit and own Grants Pass. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Trinham Court, Montgomery, Alabama, is a long way from the Boston Garden. But basketball fans everywhere are talking about the game tonight.
Why am I going with the Lakers? Because they got a better team. I like fast-breaking teams. Plus, they always say I look like Dennis Johnson, but I don't. And my last name is Johnson, but I like Magic Johnson better.
These are moves even Magic would be proud to have. But Bobby Harrington feels Magic's counterpart in green and white will be the difference in a Celtics victory.
I'm a big fan of Larry Bird, no lie. Me and Larry Bird, I likes him. Yeah, I consider him better than Magic. That the Magic would not take the bird out of his hat tonight.
The Celtics will enjoy a steamy home court advantage, but Terry Thomas thinks the Lakers can beat the Heat and Boston.
The Lakers should have swept it in 4. I think politics has a lot to do with it.
Just as I figured, as many different predictions as there are people making them. As for me, I like the Celtics. But let me tell you, they don't know what heat is. In Montgomery, Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
I have no idea what makes a good manager.
For a guy who pleads ignorant, George Sparky Anderson has a remarkable record. Anderson boasts the best winning percentage among active managers. But success hasn't spoiled Sparky.
Jimmy, look at here. My man from Cincinnati, check this.
Anderson has fond memories of Cincinnati, where he guided the Big Red Machine to a pair of World Series championships.
I think all good managers have had good players. I don't believe that there's ever been a good coach, college, high school, little league, whatever you want to name, that's ever won without the best players. You know, I don't think that any coach has ever invented winning.
But Sparky doesn't just hide in his office with his feet up all day.
Sparky's always been a good manager. I mean, I remember him in the Cincinnati days, and I played against Sparky in the International League, and he's never changed. He was a good headsy baseball player, and he's a good headsy manager.
5 years ago, Anderson promised he would make the Tigers a winner in '84. Right now, he looks like a prophet.
You know, this club here is going to be 2 or 3 years compared with some clubs. Believe me now. You're not dealing here with just an ordinary outfit.
And Sparky Anderson is no ordinary manager.